class. Today we're starting with our Chapter 3 final review. So our first question for the day is this. What do we need to do when we're adding decimals, multiplying decimals, and dividing decimals? What I want you to do is I want you to think especially in regards to this decimals part. So what are we specifically doing with the decimals of each of these? That's a good hint because for each of these there is something specific that we must do with the decimals. So I got a lot of good stuff here. I got Hannah and Sophia saying you need to line them up, but there's multiple ways that we need to line them up. Fernando said by the decimal point. So I'm assuming that he means when you do something like this, like 4.3 plus 2.7, that it becomes that 4.3 plus 2.7. What about if it looked like this? If I wanted to add my decimals, would it be A or B? Would it be like 5.4 plus, plus 2.38, or 5.4 plus 2.38? So each of these has a little bit of an overhang. Which one is it gonna be? Is it gonna be the first one or the second one? Excellent. I see Izzy, Emmett, Fernando, all of you guys have said the second one. Yes. When we're adding decimals, we put them so that the decimals line up at the decimal point. So we line up the decimals. Yes. So we line those decimals nice and right up. When we're multiplying decimals, Izzy already said we line them up to the side. So what does she mean by that? What side do we line up decimals on when we're multiplying? What does that mean? Let's say I was multiplying, 2.7 by 0.43, right? So if I wanted to do that, what does she mean by that? Am I going to put them like this? 2.7 times 0.43, or am I going to put them 2.7 times 0.43? So those are the two ways that we can see that. Which way do I do? So we got Angelo saying this one, the second one right here. Melanie says the second, Izzy says the first, Emmett says the first. So we're split half and half here. But what do we think? The answer is, it's actually the first way. So whenever we're multiplying, we line them up at that far right-hand side. So we line them up at that far right-hand side, and the reason is that if we lined up those decimals like that, that would be adding. So the first one, when we line up our decimals, it's for adding and subtracting. I didn't include the word subtract. The second one, we line them up to the far right when we're multiplying. Now, does anybody remember what we do when we divide decimals? So Angela says move the decimals to the right. I'm not going to say he's wrong, but there's more to it than that. There's something specific. Sophia says add a 0. That's another great thing that we may or may not have to do, depends. So what do you have to say, Izzy?
So when you're dividing decimals, if the number that's dividing the other decimal has a decimal point, you move it back how many numbers are behind. So like the 8.62, you'd move it twice.
Yeah, so you would move it like that, right?
The other one twice.
Oh. Yeah. And there Sophia's 0 might come into play. Hey, look at that, right? Yeah, Izzy's completely correct there. So I do the same thing to the other one, right? I move it twice, and then I move it twice, and then I'm good, right? Is that what I do? I hear no. Yeah, the only amount of places I need to move it is however much my divisor needs to be moved. So only the number outside of our house, only the divisor, the decimal needs to be eliminated. The divisor needs to be moved all the way to the right-hand side to make our decimal go away. What if we didn't have a decimal out there? Well, then our job is done. So as we see it here, to add and subtract, we line them up. Now, to solve when we multiply, and this is what we didn't get to yet, is when we multiply, first things first, we line them up at the right. That's what we've gone over. Second thing is we move all of the decimals to the right, and we count them that many times. So for here, I was multiplying this 2.4 times 0.86. I just came up with it earlier. So when I was doing that, I moved my decimals over 1, 2, 3. So now all those decimals are moved over to the side. And I keep a little track here because otherwise I forget. Then you simply do normal multiplication. In this case, it'd be 24 times 86, or whatever it would be in that case. And then lastly, when you're adding them all together, you get back, blah, blah, blah. We know how to add them together. We have to put our decimal back when we're done. So we have to move the same amount. So I had to move it back 3 places. I ended up with 2,664. I really had 2.064, or 2 and 64 thousandths. To divide the decimals, you move the divisor all the way to the right. You move the dividend decimal the same amount of times, because what we do to one side, we do to the other. It's one of these cases. So for example, these would be the different ways that we would do it. Now, we do not always move your dividends decimal all the way to the end. Your dividend might not have a decimal. If it doesn't have a decimal, it's that magic one at the very end. So for example, if you had 2.6 and you had 4, you had to move this decimal over 1. There's no decimal here. It's an invisible decimal. So we move it over 1. If we had 2.61, then I have to move it over again and again. However much the outside is must match the inside. So I asked you guys, am I going to be doing A or B? And Emmett, Fernando, Izzy, Ani, you guys have all answered B for me. Exactly, we must line up our decimals when we're adding and or subtracting. Thank you, Carmen, too. Hey, I don't have a number here. Oh, it's just a 0. Anytime that you don't see a number after a decimal or even after whatever, I mean, technically after a decimal because the number 2, there's that decimal, 0, 0, 0. Zeros do not matter. So then we simply add. When we add, we get 6. We're going to add here, we get 10. 10, and then we get 4. So I get 4 6/100. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. What about this second one? What if I had this? Okay, so let's say I had this one. We already know we need to line up our decimals because we've already seen that. So we know it's 16.84 minus 15.57. So 16 84/100 minus 15 57/100. We just follow the same kind of steps, right? So when you guys do it, I want you... Excellent. So that's how we get here. As we do our subtraction, we can't do this, so it becomes 7, 14, 7, 2, 1. 1 27/100. 1.27. Excellent. What if I'm going to do some division here, people? Let's do some division. I want to do one nice division problem. So I'm going to do 0.7 divided by 0.00021. Excellent. First things first, which number goes in our house? Which number is our dividend? The one in the house. Which number? So the one that goes in the house is this one. So it is 0.7. And out of the house is this one. So all I do here is I have to move my decimal over. Boop, 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 boop. 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm left with 70,000, and on the outside, divided by 21. Looks a lot more manageable, doesn't it? That looks a lot more realistic to do 70,000 divided by 21 than trying to divide this weird number by tons of tiny decimals, blah, 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 all of that craziness. So if I want to rewrite this to make it look better, 21, there we go. Now, This becomes pretty easy. 21 goes into 7 0 times, goes into 70 3 times. That's, what, 63? That's 70. Oh, look, it's just gonna repeat itself. 3, 3, 3, and then probably 0.3 forever and ever and ever. If I consult with my calculator buddy, it says I am indeed correct. So, and that's chapter 3, you guys.